Hey Jennifer, what are we going to talk about today?
So I wanted to talk with you about the TikTok I sent you the other day that Pink News posted. It was Texas Republican Andy Hooper, and he was discussing proposing an
Oh,
amendment.
the guy who doesn't know what intersex is.
Yes, that's the one.
I could not believe that when you sent that to me. First of all, you send me a lot of TikToks, but this one, holy shit.
Yeah, so it was really bad because they're making laws, and this is not the first time we've seen this happen, where they're making laws on things that they have no clue what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah.
So they're wanting to make it, like they've said before, two genders, male and female, and that's all that exists.
So is this like a statute that they're trying to pass? Like there are two genders, male and female, or is this like, hey, we're defunding all of these LGBTQ programs in Texas, or is it both?
so Hopper was proposing an amendment to eliminate state funding for the University of Texas at Austin over its LGBTQ plus and DEI programs
Okay.
and degree plans, claiming that they taught there were more than two sexes.
Hmm.
And so represent Democratic Rep Lauren Ashley Simmons said, what about intersex people?
And
Like,
she's the one in the video who's like, just the most patient woman in the world
right.
dealing with this idiotic asshole who like who's just like not even respecting a thing that she's it's like he's not even like understanding the words coming out of her mouth.
No, because she explained it in very kid-friendly terms.
She really dumbed it down.
She dumbed it down, right? She's like, I'm gonna make this as easy as possible for you to understand.
Yeah, yeah.
Which was a jab, a very subtle one, and I love her for it.
Mhm.
Um,
Just her facial expressions though. She's just like the face that I
right,
I feel like I made when I was a teacher so many like why are you sticking that up your nose? You
right.
know, like
Why
please stop.
why are you getting this?
Yeah.
And so she explains what intersex is, like in very basic, broad terms.
Mhm.
And then he's like, no, the Bible says there's only two
Oh
sexes.
yeah, I remember that part. The biblical definition of two genders.
Which, when was the Bible
Excuse
written?
me?
How long ago?
And do not quote the Bible when you're talking about legislation. Like,
Yes,
no.
right. There's that, right?
Yeah.
But even if, right, like let's say we were using the Bible for, when was it written? You're telling me that we're still basing
Hmm.
science
Hmm.
on something that was written back in the day before
I guess roughly
we had
2,000 years
any
ago. Yeah.
technology?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where you're going to be like, yeah,
And
this is the science I believe.
it was just written by men too.
Right.
Like there was no diversity. So, but yeah, so she goes on to explain, that intersex is, and we'll explain it here, I guess, for the sake of our listeners, but it actually encompasses a lot of different conditions, and about 2% of the population. It's we don't really know for sure because of course there's a lack of funding for anything like this. So like we could know more, but we don't want to know more
There
because
was a
science is
lack of
sad.
funding. Now there is no
No
funding.
funding, yeah.
Yeah.
But basically, I think I have a statistic here somewhere, but it was like you could say anywhere around 2% of the population would have some sort of like condition. And to put it in even simpler terms, if you attend an NBA basketball game, like let's just say like it's a popular one, like the playoffs or whatever. Like, hey, last night it was Magic versus I don't fucking know, but the Magic won.
I was gonna say Packers, but I think that's
That's
football.
football. I do know that it's the playoffs right now. And in that, is it an arena? Arena. Um, there
Court.
would be at least no, well, arena, like where the people are
Oh,
sitting. Yeah, yeah. They're like watching the game. Yeah.
yeah.
At least
Clearly,
two,
sports is not my thing.
yeah, a handful of the people watching that basketball game would be intersex. And then you have this like politician who's supposed to be representing constituents, representing the
Mhm.
people, saying that those people sitting in those basketball seats watching that basketball game do not
Don't
exist.
exist. No.
You're either, and he said this in the video, you're either XX or you're XY. And then someone sitting next to him, I'm assuming is a Republican,
Yeah, it looked like it was probably his aide or something.
who of course is a woman,
Right.
was like, that's not true.
Andy, that's not true. That was the funniest part of the video.
And that's how the video ends. So here we are.
You know, he would probably like, shut up, woman.
Yeah, you don't know anything. But that's just not true. Like there, and we talked about this when we covered Gender Queer by Maya Kobabe, who I don't believe is an intersex person, but they are a non-binary person.
Right.
And labels suck, whatever. Like we don't need to label,
Right.
and we're not trying to label Maya Kobabe, but they wrote a very informative book about all kinds of conditions that basically, it's gender queer, right? I think
We
that was,
covered it a while ago, right? I think she
yeah.
went by E.
I just say
I
they.
messed up.
Yeah, yeah,
E went by A.
yeah. But that's
It's very,
it's a
we're
challenge,
just not that advanced yet.
right?
It's hard to remember.
Listen, I said they.
Yeah, no, no. Let's just edit this part out.
No, listen, we're not going to edit it. We're from here on out, we're going to use the pronouns a, right?
I don't remember what they were
It's
because
a.
it's been a while.
No,
Yeah.
yeah. No, and it has been a while. But at the time that that book was written, air pronouns were a air.
That's what it was.
Yeah, air pronouns. Okay, thank you for correcting me on that. But anyway, that book, we're going to avoid it now, talks a lot about all the different intersex conditions. That Andy, what's this guy's name again?
Hopper?
Andy Hopper, and he's from Texas.
Yeah, of course.
Texas Republican Andy Hopper should educate himself on all of the different conditions.
It takes a 5-minute search.
Yeah, you don't have
Like,
to read the book. You should.
Of course, right.
Yeah.
But it's not like he needs to know everything about it. He just needs to Google it and be like, oh yeah, this really does exist. This is real.
I'm sorry. Have you seen Freaky Friday? Do you know who Jamie Lee Curtis is?
Yeah, we talked about her on that episode.
She has Turner syndrome. Did you know that Turner syndrome is not XX? It's just X.
Yeah.
Yeah. That right there. Like, what a fucking moron.
Right.
Like, how embarrassing. But it's what angers me the most about it is you can be a fucking bigot, hypocritical asshole and have no consequences.
Right.
That's what angers me the most.
Yeah.
And the only thing we can do is vote this guy out. I'm sure he's up for 2026, right? Midterms, isn't that when midterms is next year? So yeah, Texas, vote this idiot out because he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Yeah, please.
But we're gonna spend this episode talking about a few different intersex books that you as listeners can read, or you can recommend to people who might be like Andy Hopper and not know his ass from his elbow about any of this important stuff.
You should send him the book.
Oh my God, we should.
Yeah.
That is such a good idea. There's so many to choose from.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, Gender Queer would freak him out.
That's what I was
like, cartoon dildos. What is this?
Maybe, well, you know what? Maybe we want to bring it to his attention.
I know. Well, I think that book by Gender Queer by Maya Kobabe is a highly banned book.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're bringing any more awareness to it. I think there's already a bunch of awareness about it, but it's a beautifully written book with the illustrations are colorful and the drawings are amazing. And the information is great. That is where we learned about like XXY, XYY, and all the like why men have nipples,
right?
Because they all start out as females.
It was, yeah, we learned a lot during that episode.
Yeah. But some other books that we're going to talk about, because so there's not that many books out there, right? And the ones that there are books out there, but a lot of them aren't written by intersex people. And so one that we're going to talk about is called Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides. I think I'm saying that. Or is it Eugenides, I think. And this was a is a Pulitzer Prize winning book that I read in my junior year of high school.
Okay.
And back in 2004, this was before, and books were still banned, but clearly not
as heavily as they were.
Yeah. But
recently.
Yeah, looking back, my English teacher was like, hey, I'm requiring that you read, this whole class reads this book about an intersex person. That would never happen today.
No.
Not even in like a blue state. Well, maybe in a blue state, but I don't know.
I doubt it.
Yeah. Even parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the point is, Middlesex was written by a cis white man. but it's about an intersex person, and it definitely has like mixed reviews. Like there are intersex people that are like, I love this book, it made me feel so seen, and then there are intersex people that were like, he has no business writing this book, don't read this book, read a book written by an intersex person, which of course is a valid
Right.
opinion to have. But the thing is, like, Jeffrey, you can, I gotta see if I'm saying his name right.
I butcher names all the time, so
But he's a really good author. Because I remember reading, yeah, it's Eugenides. I was right. No
okay.
L. Don't add an L. He's a really good author. That's why he won a Pulitzer Prize. It's really interesting because it goes back into like the main character, the intersex character's name is Cal, and it goes back to Cal's like grandparents when they lived in Greece before they immigrated to the United States, and they were brother and sister.
Okay.
And so
So that
another, yeah, so that's like a criticism for the book
right.
because it sort of adds more stigma
Right.
to an already very stigmatized thing. So saying like, oh, all intersex people are a result of
Like
intermarital
yeah.
relations is not a true statement. Like you can be intersex and not have any sort of like intermarital relations in your family tree.
Right. I feel like we'd see more of that happening in the South if that were true.
You went there.
Sorry.
That's a really good point. Oh man. That reminds me, have you heard of the Blue People of Kentucky?
No.
Oh my God.
What
So
is that?
when I taught biology, it was my most favorite thing to teach.
Like I've
And
heard of Blue Man Group.
no,
No,
not the Blue
not
Man
the same
Group.
thing.
No, no, no.
Okay.
So I'll just keep it quick. But basically in high school biology, you have to learn about pedigrees and genetics, and so like a really fun and engaging topic for these kids who like hate school is you're like, hey, what happens when like a brother and a sister have a baby? And they're like, well, I don't know, you get three legs or three eyeballs or whatever. And no, that's not, that's like science fiction. Like that doesn't happen. You know, unless you're talking about atomic bombs, which is a completely different topic. But what could happen is your body can stop like producing this like special protein that like breaks something down in your blood, and your blood can start to turn blue, and that creates like a bluish hue to your skin.
Really?
Yes. And so, it kind of goes down to the molecular level of like your body not like having this gene that can't process like a certain compound in your blood, and it result whatever it is, I'm kind of forgetting the science behind it now, but it results in your skin turning like bluish grayish purple. And so
Okay.
there's this region in Kentucky, well not anymore because they found a cure, but back when I used to teach it, which is making me feel old, there wasn't a cure. So when was that? That was like 10 years ago, I guess.
Wow.
Oh, and I'm also remembering when my biology teacher taught it to me. So
Okay.
that was much longer ago. But anyway, it was just like this population of people in Kentucky that were all related and they were all blue. That's,
Oh, I'm gonna look that up.
yeah, you should. The Blue People
Yeah.
of Kentucky. But there is a cure for it now. Also, they stopped having intermarital
Right.
relations. But yeah. Wait,
Interesting. Okay. See?
we got to go back to what we were talking about.
Educational.
Yeah. So a lots of things can happen, but intersex is not one of them.
Right.
Like we said earlier, there's not enough known about it, but there is a gene in which Jeffrey Eugenides, the author, mentions in his book, that is responsible for the certain type of intersex that Cal, the main character, has. And he does talk about like the harmful H word, which I'm not going to say, but you know what I'm talking about, right? The H word.
Whoa. I hold on. Lots of H words suddenly flooded my brain.
Wait, what are some other H word? Whore. No, that's W.
That's the teacher, by the way, that
I am not an English teacher, the science teacher.
Oh, well, I was thinking,
Harlot. Harlot.
okay, so what
It refers to
people like to
intersex.
call
Yes.
okay, all right,
Someone
I
has
got
two
the first.
sexes. Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
And if you break it down, it's Greek. So I can say them separately because, whatever. We don't want to give words too much power anyway. But the first part of the word is Hermes. And then the second part of the word is comes from the Greek goddess Aphrodite, right? So if you put those together, you know what word we're talking about. But it's basically like a Greek myth in which they had both parts. And that doesn't actually exist. That's a myth, right?
Okay.
And so a lot of these books, one of the first things that they do is they address that myth. And they're like, this isn't a thing. Earthworms actually do have both parts. So if you were to call anything the H word, it should be an earthworm
And
because
frogs, right? Don't not both, but they can like
they can switch.
switch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They technically like they'll reach a certain stage in their life cycle and switch sexes. But earthworms, I think, have both
Have both.
their whole life cycle.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, Middlesex is a really good book, but I wouldn't recommend it because it's not written by an intersex person.
I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was so Jeffrey Hugonide does, go on to say that he was inspired by a French memoir that he read written by an intersex person. But it was like written a long time ago. And I need to find it.
So he wrote a memoir.
No, he wrote a book because the French memoir
based on a memoir.
Mhm.
Okay, okay. I'm getting it now.
Yeah, but he was like, it's funny because he was like, this memoir wasn't graphic enough. Like the author sort of danced around the concept of intersex and didn't really like go into detail.
Didn't
So
explain it how.
yeah, yeah. Oh, here it is. So he got the idea from Herculin Barbin, a 19th century memoir about a French intersex male who's raised as female and falls in love. I had to click on it. Well, I guess it doesn't matter, but you can falls in love with someone. And that's sort of like a common theme that we see in all these intersex books. I think there was one that was inspired by Middlesex, which is funny. It's called None of the Above, which is again written by someone who's not intersex, but a surgeon who knows about the medical field. She was inspired by Middlesex.
Because that one wasn't graphic enough.
And so it's just the point of my rant is it took me a long time to find a book about intersex written by an intersex person.
Right.
And if you think about it, like I guess if let's just say 1.5% of the population is intersex, you take that percentage and you're like, okay, what percentage of you can write books? I can't write a book.
Right. I couldn't.
It would be a bad book.
Right.
If I wrote them.
Yeah, so that makes sense that, it's hard to find someone who's got the ability and the life experience.
Right, right. So, here's my statistic that I was looking for and this was from the author who wrote None of the Above. She said about 1 in 2,000 children have some variation of intersex. And then she's the one who said there's actually probably a few intersex people at every NBA game in America.
Okay.
Which is a good way to dumb down stats for people like me to help me understand more, which I think is important. But they're not, the point is like 1 in 2,000 isn't rare, I mean,
it feels like it is, but it's not.
It's not.
Right.
Yeah, if you think about like the whole basketball game analogy, like that's not rare.
Right.
If one or two people are at every basketball game, like that's not rare, but they are invisible. And that was a quote from a representative from Interact Youth. And they say that because of the shame and stigma associated with anything that has to do with sex organs or genitalia.
Right.
And that's what we're seeing in Texas. And we're seeing it in Florida with the HB 1539, which just passed subcommittee and is on its way to the committee. And that is going to expand the Harmful to Minors Act to include any reference to sex, which some people are interpreting, myself included. You can't have a picture of a penis or vagina or any sort of reproductive organs. And I don't mean picture, I mean like a diagram.
Right. Medical diagram.
You can't have that in any textbook.
Right.
Like, are we just not allowed to know how these things
They just want to go back to calling things like, your private and your pee-pee, and
your
little
butt.
words. Right. and not,
Really funny.
which is dangerous. We've
Dangerous.
discussed this before. It is dangerous. Pedophiles love
Yes.
for,
Disgusting.
yeah, they would love for us to go back to that
Mhm.
because the less kids know,
Mhm.
the easier it is to fool them.
Yeah, and I think I remember like watching an interview for like a child psychologist that was like talking about how they talk to children who survivors of sexual assault with like dolls, and they're like point to where like you were violated or something, because like one, you've already experienced just a horrendous trauma that no child should ever come close to even fathoming, but two, they're not encouraged to use anatomically correct
Right.
terms, so it's like how with their limited vocabulary are they supposed to communicate this unspeakable thing happened to them? And having reading these books and having these conversations, and as parents, telling other parents, like, teach your kids what these things are, what their proper names are, what they do, is so important for so
Right.
many reasons. And here we have, entire governments trying to erase this language from our children's vocabulary.
Right. And they just have this impression that everything is dirty, and like what do they call it? Obscene.
Yeah, they say they like to use that word obscene a lot,
Yeah.
or I guess the harmful to minors. Yeah, like what's the word they use? I guess it is obscene. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so that, but what can we do about that? You guys listening can actually follow in Florida listeners can follow at Keep Florida Reading on Instagram. You can email the subcommittee. They have it set up where all you have to do is like click a button and then you enter your information and it emails the entire subcommittee. If you want to take it a step further, I think you can still find these subcommittee names and you can even like call them and leave them messages if you wanted to do that. But yeah, this isn't just happening in Florida. We already talked about Texas, and a Tennessee library is actually restricting any books that have to do with gender to just the YA section. Or no, they're restricting it from the children and the YA section.
So it's just in the adult section.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And think about it, like a child who is intersex
Hmm.
has no resources
Hmm.
to find out,
Hmm.
anything.
Hmm.
It's so messed up.
Yeah, or even like a child who is trans, like um what was that book? Melissa, formerly known as George.
Right.
What adult is going to read that book? Like, not that it's a bad book. It's
Right.
like that's not a book written for
It's for
adults.
children.
It's for children. Like, what are you going
Right.
to put Melissa in the adult section? Like, that's
Right.
just like stupid. Like, but here we see this. These are just like a few examples happening around the country. But yeah, let's talk about the actual books written by intersex people. So, okay, so the first one I found was called Born, or is called Born Both. It's a memoir, and it's the first well-known, according to my research, well-known memoir written by an intersex individual. And I know this because like it has a lot of, it was on Goodreads.
Okay.
It has a lot of reviews, or at least, like enough, I
Right.
guess. And most of the reviews were pretty good. Like people
Okay.
were like, "Oh, finally a book, a memoir, written by an intersex person." But a lot of the reviews were like the writing could be tightened up a little bit,
Okay.
which like,
Which we just discussed
yeah,
how that
yeah,
could be an issue.
yeah, I get it. But like, good for that person. Which, did I write their name down? Oh, I'm so dumb. I didn't write their name down. Um, Born Both. Can you look that up? Yeah. But good for that person for writing that memoir. While Jennifer's looking that up, another one who I did write their name down, named Thea Hillman, wrote another memoir, but it doesn't have as many reviews, and that one is called Intersex, for lack of a better word.
The book is by Hida Veloria.
Okay, Hida Veloria wrote Born Both: An Intersex Life, and it gets a 3.9 out of 5 on Goodreads, which I think is pretty good.
Yeah, that's what I was just looking at.
Yeah.
3.9 is pretty high.
I can't write a book and get 3.9,
Right.
let alone like thousands of reviews. Like,
Yeah.
so I don't know. There were a few reviews that were,
It was published in 2017, so it's not that old.
mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are two memoirs written by intersex people. And then, one I found that I think was geared more towards like YA, was called Zoxy. XOXY. And I think it's like a play on like
The chromosomes.
Mhm.
Okay.
And that's a memoir written by Kimberly Zeiselman, who is an intersex author. Um, and in my brief research, that one seems to be like the one that I'm going to read.
Okay.
Yeah. So I want to read I'm calling it Zoxy, but it's XOXY. So I'm going to buy that and read that.
Yeah, that sounds interesting because I
Mhm.
I feel like I get the concept of intersex, but I also still am somewhat confused sometimes
Mhm.
what it means. Because like you said, it doesn't mean that you're born with both, which I get, but it means that you're not born with something that's defined as one or the other.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And actually to expand on that, one of these books, I think it was Hida, the one that you just
Mm,
told me. I think yeah, Hida Valoria. She had something where like she had a hormone that made her an intersex female when she hit puberty. So it's like I said earlier, it's an umbrella term for like hundreds of
right,
different things. Yeah. So it's like I don't know, you just start making like different hormones and then you, I don't know, get facial hair and your voice gets deeper or something
right.
like that could be one of like dozens of different conditions.
Okay.
And like the more they kind of like the ones that are easier to grasp would be like XXY, which from what I recall from my teaching, XXY is a male because they have the Y chromosome,
Mhm.
but because they have two X's, they also develop breasts and like other female characteristics.
Okay.
And Andy Hopper should know this, but it's not just XY, it's
Right.
XXY. So where do those people fit? Like we said, they're invisible. They're not rare, but they're invisible.
Right.
And Andy Hopper is just trying to erase them from
And I'm sure that
existence.
they would classify them as someone trans or
Mhm.
something incorrectly. And not that there's anything wrong with being trans,
Right.
but to them,
Right.
it would be like an abomination type
Hmm.
thing, sort of, like
Hmm.
they would see it as something bad when
Yeah.
it's out of their control.
Yeah, they're born that way. But I would argue that trans people are also born that
Yes.
way. Um, and I know you agree with me on that, but and I think that if we actually put money and time and effort into researching this, we would find that trans people have like a gene or something related to not intersex per se, but like just like the biology of sex.
Right.
Because like she said, what was her name? The Democratic patient woman? I forgot. I'm terrible with names, but
Her name was
I want to give her credit where credit is due.
Simmons. Lauren Ashley Simmons.
Lauren Ashley Simmons, in her very patient response to Andy Hopper, um, said gender is a social construct.
Right.
And he was like, no, it's not. Gender is XXXY, as the Bible says, but it is a social construct because sex is what we're talking about.
Right.
Sex is a biological concept that is a sliding scale that can be XO, XX, XY, XYY, XXY, XYYY. There's just so many different things that it can
Right.
be. Or you can just be XX with like a condition that turns your hormones backwards and then
And I think you know what it is I remember in elementary school when we first had like sex education and things like that were discussed, we were taught XX, XY,
you weren't taught anything else.
anything else. And then we get to middle school and high school, and a lot of us checked out, and stopped
Yeah.
listening
Hmm.
and showing up to class. And
Hmm.
and so now we're still going with that third, fourth grade
Hmm.
definition of just XXXY, and we never grew from there.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. But also, I think teachers today would be afraid.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
I remember I've said this before when my last year, I was pregnant, 9 months pregnant, about to pop. And I, it was an AP environmental science class, which, whatever, it's science, right? So I don't know how I was connecting it to female empowerment. So I was like, hey, and this is a standard in AP environmental science. Like if we empower women, then the environment would actually benefit. Like because there are lots of places in the world that where you're not allowed to be a farmer if you're a woman, right? But if women were empowered to have their own farms, the environment would benefit.
Right.
And so that's kind of what the project was about. But somehow I was like, you know what, we're going to talk about sex and how it is a sliding scale, right?
Right.
And so Bill Nye Saves the World actually had an episode about it. And it's a really good episode, but it's basically what we're talking about, how like sex isn't just male or female. There's lots of things in between. And so I showed it, and these are like 17 and 18-year-old kids, right? One of them went home and complained to their daddy about how Miss B was trying to tell him that,
Before they knew
yeah,
what woke agenda
yeah,
was, you
this this is 2017, yeah. And so I was already out the door, like we were moving to California, like I wasn't. And so um the principal, which I'm not really, looking back, I wasn't really thrilled about, but he lied to the parent, was like, yeah, we fired her. I was a little pissed about
right,
that. Like, you didn't fire me. I quit.
right.
I quit before that happened. And
Nice try.
they weren't, I mean, they wouldn't have fired me, but anyway, that just reminds me of that. So,
That's can you imagine if you taught that today?
oh yeah, I'd be sued.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you'd be in jail.
Well, okay. That, and I'm glad you brought that up, because there's a teacher in Brevard
Mhm.
who it was fired for using their students' preferred pronouns.
Right.
And
And the child's mom
Mhm.
or parent, I'm assuming it's the mom,
Mhm.
is a Moms for Liberty.
Of course.
So I am wondering if that was a setup. I haven't looked that much into it, but
Mm.
we know that they've done things like that before.
And if you're a teacher and you know that like a student's mom is a Moms for Liberty, like, and they're like, hey, can you call me by this name instead? Alarm bells should be going off.
Yeah.
But maybe that teacher didn't know.
Right.
And it was a setup. But the county of Brevard is coming to this teacher's aid and supporting them and trying to get her reinstated. So
Are they? That's
Mhm,
good because
mhm.
I mean they did fire her.
Yeah, no, the community of Brevard
No, they
is
didn't fire her. They didn't renew her contract,
right.
which was a sneaky way of kind of like
Mhm.
getting her out the door.
That's yeah.
But she was a well-respected teacher.
Mhm,
The children like loved her,
mhm,
the kind of teacher we want,
mhm,
not because she uses someone's preferred pronoun, but because she's a good teacher,
mhm. Yeah,
That's just a bonus that she
yeah.
respects her students. But
Right. There's not the good teachers that you speak of are leaving
Mhm.
or being forced out. And education has shifted so much, so drastically in such a short time, that there is no job security.
Right.
Like there are still a few older teachers that have been like tenured, for lack of a better word, but like I wasn't one of those teachers. Like I was on a contract by contract, basis. Like they could just not renew my contract.
Right.
But like a lot of schools aren't going to do that because like they need teachers.
Right.
But I don't know, it still sucks.
Yeah, but in states like ours, like this teacher,
Hmm.
we need them and
Yeah.
they're still willing to let her go. So
Yeah. Yeah, she's a perfect example of like what the future is going to look like. And it's really sucks because, it's our children who are being impacted. Now, like you said, good teachers aren't going to want to teach.
right.
And they're not going to teach you about the blue people in Kentucky. Who's going to teach you about the blue people in Kentucky?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need good teachers.
Listen, not to brag. No, I'm totally going to brag. But
you taught about the blue people.
yeah. No, but like I taught what do we call them, on level kids.
Okay.
It's funny. The terminology for non-honors or non-advanced students is always changing. But now I think the proper terminology for regular kids
Okay.
is on level, right?
Right.
So I taught all the on level kids, and they had to pass this state biology test, which was really kind of hard to pass. And these like on level kids, like they've been going to school for however many years now, and they're sick, like you said, they're sick of it and they're checked out by the time they get to high school. But they all passed the state test, and it was because I knew how to engage them, right? And
Right.
you engage them with things like XO syndrome or XXY,
Right.
or the blue people in Kentucky. Like they're teenagers are smart, and they they have really good ideas. And if you treat them like they're just a bunch of idiots, like they're going to pick up on that, and they're going to check out, and they're not going to give a shit, and they're going to fail their tests, and they're not going to care. But I didn't do that, and I left because education is a very hard place to work. And I would bet that a lot of
Underpaid,
other people.
underappreciated. Yeah.
Mhm. Anyway, I'm done. I'm ranting about education now. For now. For now. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about in terms of like, the intersex books. There's one other book that I did buy, but it is a medical journal.
Okay.
And so but this is a really interesting story. It is written by Catherine Harper, who is I think she has multiple doctorates, and one of her doctorates was in something about textiles and drag. Like, I didn't know you could get a doctorate for that.
I didn't
I
either.
think that's how doctorates work. You're just like, I'm going to study this and
Right.
you're going to give me a doctorate. And then the committee's like, well, if, we'll see. But
It works
yeah,
for me.
yeah, yeah. So basically that's what this Catherine Harper did. She started out like in the fashion industry, like art, like the art world, right? And so she was like studying textiles and like how drag performers used textiles like fabrics and sequins and feather boas, I guess.
Right.
Anyway, that's my interpretation of her work. Hopefully I'm not too off because I was like, I don't know how else to interpret it.
Right.
But anyway, that kind of like led her down this road of intersex. So I'll read this little quote here. So this is a review of Catherine Harper's book. Ultimately, this is an exceptional book for an audience that could desperately use an informed, sympathetic, and understanding voice. If I knew someone who is struggling with their intersex condition or someone who wanted to know how others have experienced and dealt with their intersex condition, Catherine Harper's Intersex would be at the top of my list of recommended readings. So she's just like a really smart person who has multiple doctorates, and she got a grant from a university,
Okay.
and they basically funded her traveling the world to like interview different intersex people, and she put it in her book. So it's like each chapter is like a different subject about intersex, but they all have interviews with real intersex people. So while Catherine Harper is not an intersex person herself, she really did put the work into this, and it has been published in medical journals, even though
Okay.
she started out as like a fashion
Right.
person.
That is
It was a
crazy.
really weird journey, but very interesting. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds like an interesting one too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I bought that one, and it's actually kind of hard to find because it's not like a book,
And that's something you'd find on like
Yeah.
Barnes and Noble
No,
shelves.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You got to get it on like those weird back websites.
Be careful.
Be careful. Yeah, I'm sure. A list of all my purchases is
Right.
sent to the White House as we speak.
That Elon already has.
Oh, yeah, he already knows.
Knows everything now.
Mm-hmm. That is kind of scary though. It's like, at what point do we scrub our social media?
I think it's too late. Yeah. At this point, I'm like, they already know I hate the man, and you catch me in El Salvador. I don't know.
No. I'll come get you. Well, actually, I was just reading because we were going to talk about the deportations when we cover Cast when I finish it, because that is a behemoth of a book.
Right.
But it is so good. Like, I'm loving reading it, but it's taking me a long time.
Yeah.
But
Find time.
when we cover that, like, we can talk about the deportations. But I was sort of educating myself on like the most recent things. And did you hear that Cory Booker he's looking into planning a trip to El Salvador to get him back?
Really?
Yeah.
That would be interesting because I know that the president of El Salvador was just here, and he was like, well, it's not like I could smuggle him in.
Yeah.
Kind of like, well, the same way you took him out,
Right.
or he was taken out,
Right. It's not hard. Yeah.
you the leader of two countries can agree to have him returned.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, these are wild times.
It's crazy. And like, I don't, I'm see now I'm looking for where I found it, but it wasn't just Cory Booker. It was someone else too. Um, that was like, yeah, we're gonna go back and get him. But I can't find it now. But when I do, I'll put it in the show
I
notes.
wonder, I mean, if I don't know if he'll be able to.
I know. It's
Like, I don't
like
see,
that sounds really dangerous.
unless he's bringing like some military forces, which he can't
Because he
command.
doesn't, that's the thing. It's like, yeah, if this happened in 2028 and like we were able to elect someone who has a soul, or at least a sliver of a soul, right? and then they could be like, okay, we're sending Cory Booker with like an army to go retrieve these wrongfully deported people. But that's not the case. It would just be Cory Booker.
Right.
What
Yeah.
it seems like more of like a publicity stunt,
I think
which he's known for.
right. Like maybe good intentions. I'll give
Of
him,
course he has good
but
intentions. Yeah.
I don't see how
What are you gonna do?
it'll kind of be like the lady, and I don't know her name, but she's a Republican and she keeps showing up to like ICE raids
Oh,
all like,
uh-huh.
full face of makeup,
Yeah.
all glammed up, but
Yeah.
with the like uniform
Yeah.
on and holding a gun.
Yeah.
And
I hate
even
her.
like Megan, not Megan Kelly, what's her name? She was on Fox
No, I think
before.
it was Megyn
It's a Megan
Kelly.
Kelly. Even
Yeah.
she was like, she's cosplaying and it's
Yes.
ridiculous. And
Yeah.
I
I
was
saw
like,
that headline
I
was
did not see
Megyn
myself
Kelly.
agreeing with her, but
I was like, wait, is this the right Megyn Kelly?
right.
Because I can't keep up with all the names too.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's down there. She's actually down there, right?
Yeah, she shows up, but
Let's have her do it. No, she doesn't want to do it. I guess.
no, she wants to keep him there.
Yeah, I know. Ah, that's so embarrassing. Oh, I saw somewhere that like the rest of the world, um, well, I guess yeah, the rest of, I was thinking we've said this before. This is old, but it resonated. The rest of the world is looking at America the way that America is looking at Florida, right? I think that's what it was. Um, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I hope we get him back. I really do. But I don't know. It's scary.
Well, while we're on the topic, we might as well, I mean, we'll just talk about him, right?
Mhm.
So, can you say his name for me?
Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
Okay. So he's a Salvadoran man he had protected status,
Right.
and was mistakenly deported. And then a judge, a federal judge was like, you need to send him back, and like the whole plane of people,
Right.
right? And the Supreme Court talked about it, and they're like, well, 5-4, no, they can be deported during litigation. And so it's not over yet, essentially, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
And I think there are a couple of judges that are like,
Well, I think the Supreme Court, didn't they rule that he has to be returned 9-0? Which was shocking.
Yes, I'm getting them mixed up. Yeah. No. The Supreme Court said 9-0, he needs to be returned. And the Department of Justice is like, no, we're not going to do it.
Which is
that's right.
Wild.
The 5-4 decision is about is just about I think it's about the plane of Venezuelans that got sent to Salvador.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's two different, I mean, there's multiple cases, which is good. It's good that that these things are being challenged in court. But what's bad is that
they're still getting away with
the highest court in the country, 9-0,
which is shocking.
Never happens. And DOJ is like, no, we're good.
Yeah. Too bad. Suck it.
So that's a case to follow. Like, we need to see like what's gonna happen.
And they're trying to say that he was in a gang, and the
Garcia?
reason or like the evidence that they had for him being in a gang was a Chicago Bulls hat, a Chicago Bulls sweater.
What?
And then someone that got
so my son's in a gang.
Right. Yeah. And someone said he was in a gang. Ugh. But like there's no one to corroborate.
Yeah. Disgusting.
And so like it's been cleared, like he's not in a gang.
Mm-hmm.
There's no actual proof of him being in a gang. Mm-hmm. Wearing Chicago Bulls merch does not make you a gang member. Mm-hmm. Just like having a rose tattoo does not make you a gang member. Mm-hmm. Like it takes a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
And it's like a gang associated in New York, which he's from New Jersey, I think.
Oh.
And he's never been to New York.
Oh my God.
So like it just.
And he has a special needs son, doesn't he?
That I don't know. You might be right. I know he has a wife and a child, I believe.
A construction worker and father of 2 U.S. citizen children in Maryland.
Oh, Maryland is where he's from. Okay.
Yeah. No ties to gangs or a criminal record. Just exactly what Jennifer said.
But if you hear the right talking about him, they still talk about him as a gang member, which is like that's already been debunked.
Yeah, they don't.
Why are you continuing to say that?
So what are we going to do about this? Well, the next protest, I think, is this Saturday.
Is it?
Yeah.
I have to work.
Oh,
I'm dying to go to a protest.
I think there's one, but it's in like the fucking Facebook, but you can't beat them, join them,
Wait,
I
do I
guess,
have a
right?
Saturday? I might not.
Okay, let me look it up real quick. But um I don't know what is it, like each time they do like a theme.
Yeah,
I think this one you're supposed to bring American flags and be like, take America back. I don't know. But I'm gonna, just because I feel compelled to, like, I'm gonna make a sign that has something to do with like the wrongful deportation of people. And I think that that's all we really can do right now, besides calling our lawmakers using the Five Calls app. You
right.
can call that, and they make it really easy. The script is there. You just click. They're like, where are you located? And then they find the phone number for you. You click the button and it calls. No one ever answers.
Right.
Okay, it's just always goes to voicemail because they don't want to talk to you. And then you just read the script and you can say, like, bring him back, bring
Right.
them back, bring all of them back, right?
Yeah.
Or support whatever. But in addition to that, if you have the time and the capacity, like, go to your local protests and hold a sign. And that way they know that they're not forgotten.
You know what's crazy is, as much as they want to talk about Doge and cutting wasteful spending,
Oh my
do you
God.
know how much has been spent to deport these people
No.
that shouldn't be deported to begin with?
Mm-mm.
It is a lot.
Yeah, it's
A lot.
ridiculous.
I couldn't give you a number because I don't know off
Well, I
the top
know
of my
that
head, but it's a lot.
$6 million alone just for that plane of Venezuelans to the El Salvadoran
Just for that plane.
dictator, not president. Well, I guess technically he's a dictator
You
or
know,
president, but
my husband used to talk so highly about that guy.
really?
Yeah, because he's like, yeah, he cleaned up that plate. It was like all gang ridden and he cleaned it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, look at him now.
Mm-mm.
And now he's just like, yeah,
He is?
yeah, he's taking it back.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I just got it. So it's not the 19th, it's the 26th.
Okay.
So, and I think those of you listening that aren't in our area, like, I think these protests are being timed for the whole country. So March 5th was a big one.
Yeah, that
Or
was a
sorry,
huge
March
one.
4th. March 4th was a big one.
Oh, okay.
April 5th was a big one. And now April 26th is the Stop Deportation rally.
Okay.
So that I think my daughter is getting her hair dyed that day. But I'm still gonna make it because it's at 10 a.m. So I think I'll just do that and then we'll go get our hair dyed.
Okay. I mean, yeah, it's hard because we also have to deal with
Mm,
kids and we don't want to take our kids to these things because they
right.
could get violent.
There was one kid at the last one.
Yeah.
But one, just one.
I used to like to take my kids to them,
Mhm.
but my husband was like, no.
Mhm.
And then I kind of started to see his,
Same with mine. Yeah.
because
Can I not bring the kids to deportation rally? Am I allowed? He's not answering. He's pleading the fifth.
right. He's like, I'm guessing that's a no.
Yeah.
And I get it. I
Mhm.
get it because, it has gotten violent and
Yeah, and a car could just swerve. Like, they are so angry.
right.
Like, my sign was just like, it's okay to admit that you're wrong. And
They're like, no, it's not.
it pissed them off. I got so many middle fingers and I was like inches from the road.
Right.
Like, I'm like, I could die at any minute. Like, I don't want my kids here.
Right.
Yeah. I can at least jump out of the way. Like, I don't want to be babysitting. Like, I'll protect myself.
Right. No, it's yeah.
But they can hear about us doing it.
Right.
Like, oh, where were you today? Oh, my kids are the older ones anyway, are very interested in like what I'm doing and have lots of questions. So I think that's meaningful. Like, that's good. So but yeah, I think going back to how successful these protests were, like the last one was really successful. Like, oh, that reminds me, some statistic that like some like really smart person, a lot smarter than me, was like 3.5% of the population is all it takes to overturn a government.
I think we have that.
Yeah, we
I think
definitely
we
have.
have that.
Yeah. So it's like that's like a really hopeful statistic. Like, you only need 3.5% of the entire population to make actual change.
Okay.
And you can be part of that percent by downloading the Five Calls app and calling your lawmakers, by following social media accounts and clicking on their little email templates that they spend hours doing, so that all we have to do is
Right.
click a button and send an email to 20 people. Or you could go to the protest. Like, you are a part of that 3.5% by doing one of those three things.
Right.
and you can do one of those three things. Like,
Yeah, you can make a phone call.
yeah, you have a smartphone. We know you do.
Right.
We know.
Just do it. Just do it.
Yeah. Also, you know what else you should do? Like and subscribe.
Please. We're begging.
We're on YouTube now. You could go to YouTube. You could watch us talk on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's all the rage. I don't know why.
I don't think anybody wants to see this face, but
Oh,
if you
it's a
do
beautiful
want to see
face.
it, it's on YouTube now.
Yeah. Come check us out. But yeah, I think that's a good place to end, don't you?
I think so. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for listening. And remember, don't ban books.
Ban bigots.
The end.